Since 9/11, security at airports has become more intense and intrusive. Security scanners reveal images of passengers that show the person through their clothing. This has not only raised privacy issues, but health issues as well. The TSA will not release information about how their system works, but some reports say these scanners could cost up to 100 cases of cancer a year. The scanners are also thought to be highly ineffective. Representative John Mica of Florida was briefed on the effectiveness of airport scanners. He said, if we could reveal the failure rate of the scanners, the American public would be outraged. Passengers not willing to subject themselves or their children to the machines can elect to be searched by hand. Many of these searches are deemed to be inappropriate. In 2010, TSA agents were ordered to touch passengers' breasts and genitals. Hundreds of people have filed complaints against the agency for the behavior of agents during these screenings. Many potential plaintiffs have been threatened with countersuits. James Bovard is an author and lecturer. His views on politics have been published in the Washington Times, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, and other major outlets. Bovard is a leading voice in libertarian politics. Today, he uncovers government waste, corruption, and cronyism in politics. He wrote Attention Deficit Democracy and many other books. He's our guest on the show today, and he's here to talk to us about the TSA, possible arming of agents at airports, and opposition to practices of the agency. Welcome to the show, James.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
James, how effective has the TSA been at providing airport security?
Well, they've been far more effective at intimidating American travelers because they're heavy-handed. A lot of the agents tend to strut. It's funny, the TSA has changed the uniforms a number of times to try to make them look more cop-like, so that will make people more submissive or more frightened to cross them. But it really hasn't worked because the agency is still pretty much of a laughingstock.
We recently reported on a viral video that displayed a security expert creating an explosive device using parts that can be acquired after the person goes through the security screening. Does that essentially render the TSA ineffective as well?
Well, that's a kind word for it. It's funny. It's been obvious that the TSA is basically incompetent from the time that it was first created back in 2002. But it's become more. It's become a lot more aggressive in the last 3 years, and partly because of a lot of people did not want to go through these whole body scanners because they did not want to have their privacy shredded. They did not want to have a picture of their birthday suit in their federal dossier, and they also had health concerns. So what the agency did was decide to basically brutalize a lot of people who would not go through, to try to make it too costly for people to not take their risk with the getting a dose of radiation or worse. And it was all an absurdity because the folks at the TSA only had coverage and only had these scanners like at 70 different airports out of 400 plus, so that if somebody was, if terrorists wanted to really slip through and if these scanners were actually effective, which they're not, then all they had to do was go to a different airport. And there's actually a website online which tells people what kind of scanning system or scanning device is used at each airport in this country. So it makes a mockery of having partial coverage. But there's so much swagger and arrogance that the agency has that they've gotten away with this so far. But I'm encouraged. It seems a lot more Americans are starting to say the emperor has no clothes.
James, let's jump forward now. Recently, the LAX shooting has created an outcry for TSA agents to carry weapons. Do you believe that by creating a new class of TSA agent, do you believe this would create more safety when boarding an aircraft, or just play into the Homeland Security theater that we see?
Well, I think this would be very expensive for the workers' comp system, because if you gave 50,000 TSA agents firearms within 30 days, 10,000 of them would have accidentally shot themselves. And these are folks who have struggled to have basic levels of competence even with simple handheld wands. And the thought of giving them guns would be an absolute fiasco for airline safety. This is the worst possible way to respond to threats, and a lot of people tried to brush over the fact, but the TSA has made a great number of enemies, and according to the statements from the alleged shooter there in LAX, it sounded like he was infuriated at the agency. It's completely unjustified to shoot TSA agents, period. And there is no defense for what that guy did, but the TSA has sowed the seeds of a lot of hatred.
Do you believe that if TSA agents were armed, that the LAX shooting would have been prevented?
No, because I think that the guy could have done something, might have slightly altered his approach. But simply having more government agents with guns is not going to solve the problem. This is something which we've tried with a lot of police forces, and it's not like there's a age of easy living that's occurred as a result.
James, what do you think the impact and outcome will be on airport security in the wake of the shooting in LAX?
I don't know. I mean, there are so many other scandals that have occurred since then. There's so many other fiascos going on from the federal government that I don't know how much attention Congress is going to pay to this. There was a General Accounting Office report yesterday which said that the behavior detection program that the TSA has, and which the guy who was fatally shot was part of, is basically completely useless and should be abolished. It's completely useless and has no justification for existing, and yet other government reports have said the same thing about this part of the TSA in the past, and it's still around.
Now, James, what can be done to make airport security more effective?
Well, we'd be a lot better off if it was privatized. And there are some airports which have already done that. The TSA is trying to prevent airports from getting rid of their federal agents, but I think there would be much less antagonism, which is throwing sparks at the gasoline sometimes.
James, we have to take a break, and when we come back, I want to talk about the political motivations behind some of the policy positions taken by the TSA, such as random searches. But like I said, we're up against a break. We'll be right back. We're talking with author James Bovard right here on WHDT World News.